In Day 1, we covered the new world of Korra. In Day 2, we looked at the main characters. Today, we look at how the events that have been moving throughout all of that come to a head. The war that has been building, who Amon really is, and why Korra is having those sort of flashbacks to events witnessed by Team Avatar back in the day. So we move into the final act with Episode 8. With Sato's home now an enemy stronghold, Bolin, Mako, and Asami will come to Air Temple Island, thanks to the Air Acolytes. You might remember them. Aang formed them back in The Promise. They're non-benders who nevertheless follow the ways of air nomads, despite whatever trials that might bring. Well, it's time for them to settle in.
I'd be happy to show you to the men's dormitory.
I'm a boy.
Oh, those finally descended, huh? Ikki lets slip to Asami that Korra likes Mako, setting up a series of 3 wild takes in the span of about a minute to get across how awkward this all is. Speaking of awkward, with Lin Bei Fong stepping down, Saikon will be taken over as chief. He's the guy who sounds like Bato from SAC. And yeah, the other Bato wasn't their father, he was his friend. My bad. I plead the Brennan Braga defense. Dreams don't have to make sense. Anyway, he'll be reporting directly to Tarlok now. Saikon, not Bato. Don't think a 100-year-old man should be chasing down the most dangerous terrorist alive. Not unless the Mechanist made him a really kick-ass walker.
What is that weasel snake Tarlok up to now?
Ah, not ferret weasel, weasel snake. I really should have thought of that one myself. Korra tears into Tarlok and refuses to return to the task force, but he gives it right back.
I'm the Avatar.
You are not, in fact, the Avatar. You are merely a half-baked Avatar in training.
You may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Which reminds me, how is your airbending going? Made any significant progress with that? I didn't think so.
Ouch, right in the Earth Chakra. Korra broods on the way back. She's got the moves down for airbending, but she can't produce any puffs of air. Besides that whole belching scene, of course. Tenzin says that perhaps calling upon the advice of her past lives would help her, reminding her that, there's something else that she sucks at too. But Asami, Bolin, and Mako show up to encourage her, and they agree they'll become the new Team Avatar, which...
Yeah, let's do it! What are we doing?
Annoying kid, fart gag, forced laugh. Perhaps you could follow this up with a pie in the face if that's not too highbrow for you. To make up for this stuff for the kids, aka patronizing kids, they follow it up with their patrol. Asami decked out in awesome wear and taking them on a wild ride in a sodomobile to go looking for Equalists. And they catch him, much to Tarlok's annoyance.
What you did was tear up the city and impede the real authorities in their pursuit of these criminals.
That's funny. I didn't see your little task force or the cops the whole time.
By this point, I was certain he had to be Amon, but again, I was wrong. He's just got his panties in a bunch because Korra made him look like an ass. So to make up for it, the next day he puts forth a law making associating with the Equalists a crime, which is questionable, and then declaring a curfew on non-benders, which is just frickin' stupid. Tenzin objects because he actually has a spine, but the rest go along with it.
You can't punish all non-benders for the actions of a few.
That kind of cowardice will cause our city to fall into Amon's hands.
Third time. You cannot convince people benders aren't trying to oppress them. Please try to follow this. By having benders running around and oppressing them. Really, trust me, it doesn't work. And this is so obvious, and so gives Amon further ammunition to use in rallying people to his cause, it's hard to believe Tarlok isn't deliberately doing this to further the Equalist cause. Well, to further show if he's not working for Amon, he's just a frickin' idiot, he shuts down the power to one of the boroughs, and when the people come out to ask what the hell, he declares them all Equalists and has them arrested. The entire crowd. Korra finally steps in, so in a snit Tarlok arrests Asami, and then Bolin and Mako. Korra's ready to make a Tarlok sandwich with some slabs, but they talk her down. They're going to need somebody on the outside to sort this out. But even Tenzin can't do anything right now, because in addition to being a dick in the first degree, Tarlok has created indefinite detention too. Next will no doubt be the robot drones. This has all gone too far for Korra. Whatever the world now is, the role of the Avatar is to ensure balance, and not just between the nations, but to ensure that the benders do not oppress non-benders. Tarlok is now no different than the Triads that she'd beaten up when she first arrived, and doing what Amon said the Wolf Bats did. Even with all the power, he's still stacking the game in his favor. Well, Korra's had enough and confronts him in his office late at night.
You're doing exactly what Amon says is wrong with benders. You're using your power to oppress and intimidate people.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
And you don't?
Of course not.
Isn't that what you came here to do?
Nice try, very nice try. But the difference is that your job is to preserve the peace and justice of Republic City. You are performing an injustice by treating the innocent as if they were guilty, and you destroy the peace by encouraging them to resort to violence because you have destroyed all nonviolent recourse. And you provided a ready-made army for the greatest threat to Republic City ever. Your cure is worse than the disease, and you have utterly failed in doing your job. That is the difference. You abuse your power to intimidate people. Korra's doing her job to try to intimidate you into stopping that. Tarlok decides that if Korra won't join him, he'll destroy her, and he is definitely a skilled waterbender. But now Korra really lets it all go and beats the crap out of him, so Tarlok plays his trump card. He's a bloodbender, and not just any bloodbender, he's capable of doing it even when the moon isn't full. So he takes her away into a convenient avatar crate, just in case he ever needed to take her to the vet or something, then planted evidence to frame the Equalists for taking her. Well, Lynn's not taking this lying down, so she busts the rest of Team Avatar out of jail, and with Tenzin they go check in the tunnels, assuming that the Equalists have her. Mako's obsession with finding her makes Asami nervous, and with Iki slip, she's starting to wonder what's up with them.
There was this one time during the tournament when Mako and Korra kissed, but...
They kissed?
Oh man, in a cartoon, a kiss is like third base. They break inside and manage to find the officers. Amon had already taken away their bending, but naturally there's no sign of Korra, so they piece together that it's really Tarlok who has her. Well, with nothing else to do, Korra decides to meditate and see if she can get in touch with Aang, and she flashes back to the original Team Avatar handling things in Republic City during their own crisis. Yakone, that's a name that was previously mentioned in the series, is arrested by Toph and charged with being a bloodbender, even though it never occurred during a full moon, the lawyer argues, so that means only one conclusion can be reached. Yakone is a werewolf. Sokka, as I mentioned previously, he was the chairman at this time, says that while it's unheard of, unique bending abilities such as Combustion Man or Toph's devising of metal bending means that unique abilities can exist. And with the overwhelming evidence that Yakone has bloodbended others, that's enough to convince them. That and his suddenly bloodbending the entire court. On this plane of reality, Tarlok is confronted over Korra's disappearance, and the clerk squeals that it's true, and that Tarlok is a bloodbender. And likewise, he bloodbends the whole room to make his escape. In the vision, Yakone knocks everybody out and runs for it, but Aang goes all Avatar state and pursues him, and even Yakone's not powerful enough to defeat an Avatar like that. Like Ozai, Yakone is a threat. He's just way too powerful of a bender, and he's too committed to using that ability to harm the world to be allowed to continue. So Aang energy bends him. Considering the terror Amon's energy bending has created throughout the series, it's a debatable point why Aang doing it is fine and Amon doing it is not. Obviously, as the Avatars are the heroes of the show and Amon is the villain, that makes it a moot point, but for purposes of discussion, Amon is an energy bender because he can take away somebody's bending. Thus, by definition, he is a bender. And if he used that ability on others against his will, regardless of his motives, he's really no different than the Triads who use their bending against others. He has made that decision without room for appeal or any justice other than him just deciding it should be taken away. So too does Aang, but as the Avatar, Aang is given a special responsibility to maintain balance and harmony. Even without energy bending, an Avatar has enough power to become a tyrant. Aang, an undertrained Avatar in a child's body, still managed to battle the most powerful firebender who had the aid of Sozin's Comet to a standstill, and that was without the Avatar state. I don't think that being an Avatar makes one automatically in the right, because Korra and Aang have made mistakes, and even Roku was still committed to killing Zuko in the promise, no matter what Aang said, to restore harmony no matter how much damage it caused. After all, you can't spell harmony without harm! But that is why the Avatar must learn and meditate and strive towards wisdom, to learn how to use that power. Zuko lamented to Aang that he wanted Aang to be his safety net. But the truth is, the Avatar is the world's safety net. The Avatar exists to maintain balance, because it was when the Avatar failed in his duties, as Roko did with Sozin, and Aang himself by disappearing, that the 100-Year War was allowed to happen. It's a grave responsibility, but in this world that is the role of the Avatar. That, I believe, is why Aang was not on the council, even though he was instrumental in creating Republic City, because the Avatar must have as his or her first responsibility to the world. And with that responsibility, as the 4 previous Avatars all made clear to Aang, that may even come down to ending the life of a threat grave enough to upset the balance. In the real world, to give any one person that kind of power would obviously make me nervous. I won't lie about that. In a world where there is a kind of magic like this, and that this power has created a living embodiment of that world to act as a balance, that is a little bit more complicated. I think it works as it does to try to ensure that the Avatar is constantly renewed, to make sure that his or her role is to do what is needed. But the core, the commitment to the well-being of the world, is always going to be present even as Avatars are born and die. As Patton famously wrote about reincarnation, "So as through a glass and darkly the age-long strife I see, where I fought in many guises, many names, but always me." The Avatar endures, and yet is reborn for each age, to live for that world and those people, not to live one life forever, so as to ensure that continued reminder that each nation is a part of the balance, and each era has its own problems, and to always be reminded that each life is as finite as his or her own. If any one person would have the right to make such a decision on their own, to make it with the wisdom necessary to ensure that it's right, and the responsibility to only do it when necessary, just like taking a life, when there is no other way, then it is the Avatar to make that call.
What?
Tarlok's bloodbending has little effect on Amon, and his bending is now taken away. We'll discuss Amon in greater detail in the final part, now that he has removed Tarlok as a threat to the city.